Well, welcome to the Undressed Podcast here today in Ubud at Karma House. I'm very, very excited actually. It's a really interesting topic, quite hopefully polarizing. So I'm looking forward to these different viewpoints and opinions. So why don't we start with a little introduction of everyone, share your name and whatever you would like us to know about you.
Yeah, my name's Katie, and I've been on a journey of really exploring relationship dynamics over the past little while. So I am very excited to dive into this topic.
My name is Mike. I believe in order to find the truth, you have to kind of like test extremes. And in order for you to understand more about yourself, you have to almost spend time at those extremes to learn more about yourself. And I think my entire life was just from one extreme to another. That's it.
My name is Lauren. I'm a screenplay writer and new mom. I'm in a really interesting monogamous situationship, co-parenting, non-romantic. Find a moniker for that.
What? Monogamous? Situationship? No sex?
No.
Okay, I'm curious about that.
It's complex, like that's for sure.
I'm Elena, and I'm a recovering journalist on a path to medicine, spirituality, relationships, love, heart, all the wonderful things we're all seeking. And it's interesting to be included in this conversation, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Everybody, I'm Luke Cohen. That's with a K. My background is as a healer mainly, so I work with people from a spiritual side to a trauma side. So I have a lot of direct experience mentoring around, trauma, which comes up in relationship, right? And so there's that lens. And I'm also a storyteller and musician, so there is a little bit of excitement to bring some story and context to this from a alternative history perspective, tribal perspective, cultural mythos perspective.
You look a little bit tribal. You can.
Can't help it.
Hi, I'm Bria, and I'm a little bit nervous. There's cool people around me. Thank you so much.
We're not staring at you.
Yeah. I'm traveling around the world already like 7 years. It's like 30 countries right now. And now I'm exploring dating for myself. And I just came back from America, so I have what to say about this all.
Okay, awesome. Really looking forward to this. Monogamy. Is it realistic or is it delusional in today's dating world? Pretty much a yes or no question, but like...
If we start like the other way around, because it's maybe you were in Bali, we go this way.
And, maybe we just do it this way.
Yeah, more nervous.
We stepping into this disruptor to this shit.
I'm going to be on the delusional side of the argument that monogamy is delusional.
Okay, cool.
I believe it depends when you ask and who you ask and what gender you ask. I believe if I was in a relationship and say I was a man, that if I was putting my entire soul, my entire heart to care for a girl and she didn't respect me for a long period of time, I'd be like, fuck this. I don't want to be in a monogamous relationship. But I also understand that if I'm a woman and I'm in a relationship where no matter how much I give my heart, my soul, like everything, like I'm still not getting respected, I'm getting abused. Like he's not the man that I thought he was, and you're just kind of dissatisfied because the man gets weaker and weaker and weaker through time, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm not going to be in a monogamous relationship. Also, on the other end of things, if I was like recovering Ubudian, just sleeping with everyone around, man or women, like whatever, and not feeling like the deep connection, I'd be like, it'd be nice if I just had one person that I could actually connect to and not just really go through this spiritual ego thing with. And also, I think it also depends on what your actual intention is. Like, some people, they're like, oh, monogamous, polygamy, whatever. It's like, what actually matters is like, do you actually want kids? Do you not want kids? There's like so many times in life where it's like, what do you actually want? And then people are just like saying what other people want. So like, oh, like I heard this person in one cafe and that person said monogamous isn't real, so I'm just going to regurgitate what they said. I think the problem with most people when they're asked monogamy or polygamy is, number one, they're just saying things they don't necessarily believe. They're just saying some shit.
Can I just interject that
Okay,
I think polyamory is more of the term probably than polygamy?
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference with yours?
Polyamory, I think, is more of what you're going to experience here. Polygamy is more of like a
A Mormon thing?
Mormon thing. Yeah. Like,
It's like multiple wives.
So what is polyamory?
I mean, this is opening up a whole can of worms because different people are going to have different definitions. But I would say loosely, polyamory is having multiple relationships that are like actual deep, loving, connected relationships. Where it's like polygamy is generally like one husband with multiple wives. And there's usually more of like a religious context to that versus, booty.
Cultural versus almost religious. Experience with polyamory?
I
Okay,
do.
we need a dictionary. Okay. What is that like?
I mean, I think we need to finish this round table before we.
Why I went to bed, it's like starting like with a few persons.
See, she wants to know. I want to know. So
It's good context setting. It's creates some differentiation around what the words mean. I think it's helpful.
All right, sure. So again, this is my perspective. There's different people that are going to have different interpretations of these terms exactly. But I think there's kind of
Use the word before, non-monogamy,
Yeah.
polyamory.
it's kind of like a
Open
gradient of
relating.
these terms, right? Where it's like people are on different ends of the spectrum. But on one end of the spectrum, let's say there's monogamy, right? And let's say on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's like, I don't know, probably this term relationship anarchy, where somewhere in the middle, like let's say more on the side of monogamy, there's non-monogamy, where you have, generally speaking, a primary partnership, and then you have permission. Again, this is going to vary by couple, by relationship, but you generally in non-monogamy have permission to have sexual relationships outside, but you still maintain that primary partnership as a generalization. And then polyamory is generally more on the side of having multiple relationships. So it's like you have and again, generalizing, long-term loving relationships. So it's like you're having multiple partners, multiple boyfriends.
That are all in connection.
if you have
Not
multiple boyfriends, if I'm thinking about it like from a business point of view, okay, so it's like I have a man for a job, like in my life, right?
Okay.
Like for the multiple men that you have relationships with, what is kind of like the job that they play in your psychology?
So I'm new, I would say, to the polyamory world. My last relationship was non-monogamous. I was with my partner for 5 years. But this kind
It
of
was non-monogamous or monogamous?
non-monogamous. Yeah. So I've had a monogamous relationship. I was married. I'm since divorced. That was also non-monogamous. It just, we didn't agree on those terms.
Non-consensual,
Yeah,
non-monogamy.
exactly. Yeah. And AKA I was cheated on. But my last relationship of 5 years was non-monogamous, ethically non-monogamous. So we've got with consent, yes. So we had our primary partnership, but we had sex outside of the relationship. And then I kind of have accidentally gotten myself into a polyamory situation in Ubud. Surely I'm the only person that's
Accidentally.
But I met two people when I first moved here and just kind of both developed into relationships. One has since left, so I'm not technically polyamorous at this moment. But yeah, generally the idea of polyamory is having multiple, it might be more than two, but multiple relationships. And just like there's different sides of you having different expressions.
Can they ask you?
What was the one man?
And you had other relationships.
That's a thick, okay.
So I'm just trying to find out what the job you're from. So it's two men in your life. Because listen, I was just in Ukraine like last week, right? So I took a 10-hour train. I'm like drunk with like 5 Australians. I got like one guy who's like was able to secure us and get us into Ukraine and out, and then there it's like completely different, right? So like I've been deep in that culture, so I'm very curious on like in their life, men and women are like a partnership where it's like if you have a business and two people have similar jobs, then it's gonna be a bad business. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Like if you have two marketers, you're gonna make a lot of money, but the product's gonna be shit. If you have two product creators, it's not gonna go and succeed, right? So relationships are kind of like a lot like partnerships, where essentially there's some type of, I guess, agreement where it's like, I will do this for you, energetically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever. The other person does that as well. And the moment that starts getting toxic, they either break up, or if one person is giving, another person's just taking, that splits, right? So in this relationship, there's you and two other guys, or one girl, one guy, or how did it go?
Both guys.
Okay, both guys. So you had this thing that you were sharing in the middle. You were giving a lot of value because obviously you were able to attract two guys. So they're like, damn, I need this fucking sexy girl. You know, so look at this fucking sexy thing. And these two guys are willing to go against their biology to be like, I want to be with this girl. So what
other partners as well.
What I want to know is what did one give to you that the other one couldn't? And what did the other one give to you that the other one couldn't? So together you felt like you completed this span.
Pause, Mike.
Are you pro-monogamy?
I'm just a curious person.
I love it.
I'm just a curious person, because I've been in Bali for 4 years, and the problem with Bali is you stay here for 4 years and everyone's talking about the same shit, and you leave and you try communicating with people that are in Bali and they just look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah. I cannot wait to learn more about you, but I'm a really good student. I got a lot of good grades and I want to follow the teacher's direction, so I'm pro-monogamy. What are you?
Pro monogamy?
Yeah, I'm for it.
Come back to
I still have a question. Does they know about the child?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's the ethical part of it.
I think this mind's just not strong enough, to cover all the things that you need.
Okay. We're getting wait, but we still want to know what were the pre-prompts? What were the pre-prompts?
Let's keep it paused. Let's just get through the free prompts so we know where everyone's in the conversation.
Hold your horses. Hold your horses.
I'm keep it short and sweet. I'm definitely pro-monogamy, and I don't think it's delusional. I think in this day and age, I feel like it's more than ever very relevant, and that's what it's all about.
For me, I'm not going to go into a super long, nuanced answer. I will say from my own experience, I know that I feel personally pair bonding monogamy is what works for me. I've done the open relating thing. I also think that it's actually correct for some people. So I don't have an opinion that's just because it works for me, that's what you need to adopt into your own life. And I'm excited to get into the nuance of where people are on the spectrum of preference, values, standards, all these things that can dictate why someone is in their orientation. But yeah, I'm personally monogamous.
Well, I'm still in shock. So I think I have just two situations, or I'm in relations or I'm playing around. So it's two different statements of minds, of my energy and everything. So when I'm in relations, it should be a strong man who ready to handle me and can influence me to move faster. So when I'm not in relations, I'm telling to guys listen, I'm not interested in anything right now. We can hang out, we can go somewhere, we can visit restaurants, we can chill together, but don't wait anything from me because we're not going to build anything. So I can have maybe 5 guys surround me, but it's mean for me nothing. I will not say that I have relations. It's just it's my period of freedom without relations. So that's why this is monogamy.
You're okay to date a bunch of men at the same time?
I'm not dating them, I'm just hanging out. So if you're dating with someone, that's mean you are building any connections, any agreements, and you have any sexual relations or some intimacy. And when you are just hanging out, so you're I don't know, having fun, having sports, going somewhere together. So it doesn't mean for me relations. It's mean for me friends, guys, my team. The support for women.
Date what's these men?
She's an entourage, Sasha.
What these men? Do these men look at these hanging out, having fun as we're dating?
No, I'm telling you in the beginning, listen, right now, I'm not looking for any relationship.
I would like to talk to these men to see their perspective.
I don't know, I'm actually also want to talk with them deeply, why are you still hanging out with me?
Can I tell you the problem, with this entire concept of even us talking about this? Is that okay? Do I have permission?
Yeah. I'm really curious what you're gonna say. Tell us about the love.
If you hone deep into it, right? Essentially what happens is you have two extremes, right? Life is all about extremes. And you have monogamy and you have whatever I can't pronounce because she's so much smarter than me.
So much. There was a lot of clips.
Go from one pendulum to another, one pendulum to another, right? And each time you go and run from one extreme, you're this isn't the answer. I'm going to go to another extreme. So you run to another extreme and then you don't get the answer. So you just keep on doing that for years and years and years. And the thing about that is that causes strength, right? When you go through each shit, you realize, oh, wow, I was wrong. You realize your mistakes. You learn from those mistakes. You grow from those mistakes. You get stronger. And the more you go from each extreme, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. A lot of the women here that are able to actually share your truth, it's because I know for a fact, a lot of you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't go through shit. You had to overcome it, and I applaud you for that, and I'm honored to be here with you, right? The problem is both genders will react very different to that strength. So, for example, from a man's experience, I'll go from one extreme to another. I'll go ahead and get used to living off $5 a day to living off thousands of dollars a day, and then go back to $5 a day, just re-humble me, right? I'll go from, dating one girl to just not taking anything seriously, right? Each extreme made me learn some lessons, made me more heartbreaks, made me learn more lessons of the mistakes that I made me stronger as a man, so that now when I go ahead and have that strength and I meet a woman, she feels safe and secure to actually surrender and allow her feminine to like dance and cry and do all those things, because she feels safe and secure for me to actually go ahead and lead, where she actually trusts me to go ahead and lead. Does that make sense? But you have a woman go and do that. She goes back and forth, back and forth. She gets stronger and stronger and stronger. The world's like saying, you need to go ahead and chase a career. You need to go ahead and make more money. It's like, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do this. They see all the girls on Instagram flying around to like Dubai and Mykonos. I was like, I want to show my butt on Instagram too. These are like their role models. And then now she's thinking all of these things. And then what happens is, the only difference is there's different biological clocks, right? Like men could fuck up in their 60s, be like, I could fix everything. The sad truth is, because most women are surrounded by weak men, they weren't led earlier on in the earlier years of their life. They fuck up later and they realize that they can't go back. So they have to cope with whatever tools that they have. And the main problem is because now they did everything that society and the world told them was actually like really good. They're like, oh, wow, you know, I went through each extreme. I got stronger, and that's amazing. But the problem with the strong woman is now she's looking around and she's like, I don't feel safe to actually trust any man to lead me, because I'm stronger than every single man.
She's in her masculine.
I would just
I can answer for this.
I would like to speak for a moment, if you don't mind.
I would love to hear.
I love, first of all, thank you so much for your perspective, and I love like the power that you bring to this. And I think you kind of described me in a sense. I delved into, I was in transactional relationships, selling my body for a few years. You can call that what you want. I was
Entrepreneurship.
like you. There's a lot of names for that, and there's a lot of people that don't sell their body, and they're part of it. And so I was one of those women that was traveling around the world, and I did feel like I was stronger than most people and quite cynical, and I was in my masculine. And now I've met an incredible man who didn't want to be with me because of those reasons. It hardened me. He couldn't feel my heart. I wasn't vulnerable. And my whole process in transformation has been learning how to feel safe in my own body, trusting my own feminine, and like letting her cry, letting her do this, and not actually relying on him to fix me or do anything or be anything. But he has helped me feel safe in that. And so now I've gone through my initiation. I have a baby, a 9-month-old baby with this man. And so I went through this whole maiden to mother. That's archetypes. That's another conversation. I went through that journey. And so I actually feel, I feel the strongest I've ever felt. And it has nothing to do with anyone else other than like my own journey in this inner alchemy of figuring out what is my own inner masculine, what is my own inner feminine. How can I marry those two, develop those two, marry those two, and then watch my reality shift around me? And then just to bring it back to sort of the theme of it, I believe in monogamy, not to say that you can't learn lessons, non-monogamy, life is all lessons, but I've learned it's quite potent in a monogamous relationship because it's like all your energy is there, and it's not similar to your example of like multiple businesses sort of being scattered. It's all there. So I got to reap the most juice of my situation with full presence. So to me, it's not even about like a moral issue. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I want to fucking, like, I guess I'm an opportunist. I want to take the most out of any situation that I can have. And I feel that monogamy offers that experience.
One thing that I'm like very interested about, I've been getting to know Sasha like a lot. He's a freaking awesome man, right? And his parents have painted such a beautiful picture for like an ideal relationship. And we were just masterminding so much about why we don't have that anymore. So like, I'm like actually really curious, like why do you think your parents were able to be together for 40 years when most people like can't even handle like a 4-minute conflict?
Yeah. So to give a little bit more background, I grew up in this love bubble. I was like blessed and spoiled with so much love, time, and presence, right? It was not about the money. We were like working class. It was not like a big, that there was a lot of assets there. But I always felt extremely safe. They just gave me and blessed me with so much love. And I grew up in an environment where I never had a fight with my parents. I never saw my parents fight. Of course, there were arguments, there were like disagreements, but then we literally sit at the table and we talk about this, you know? So, and on top of it, I was able to see my parents, my mom towards my dad and vice versa, to, in a very healthy way, set boundaries. You know, I remember this moment when...
What are those, Sasha?
We didn't have those in my house.
It's crazy. And I remember this moment where my mom is kind of like planning a little bit into my dad's day. Like, oh, can you just go there and pick it up? And he literally, in the most kind way, is like, no, I cannot. Like, you cannot plan my day. You know, you don't know what I'm going to have to do. And like, this just doesn't work. And she immediately understood. And that never happened ever again. You know, so there's a huge amount of like respect to each other and respect to oneself. Just like, look, this is crossing my boundaries right now. And it's not like it's you against me. It's like, okay, now we have this thing here and it's us together against that problem, whatever that is.
That's good teamwork.
That's amazing teamwork. That makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think that's how monogamy does work, is if each person is in self-ownership and they know, first of all, they have to know their own boundaries to set them. A lot of people don't know their boundaries. A lot of people discover their boundaries after they're violated repeatedly and they're looping in their childhood trauma, and they're like, oh, that was a boundary. And I didn't know how to set a consequence with that boundary. So for me, like, part of an instrumental framework for this conversation is understanding, you know, some key things, like people knowing their wounds or not knowing their wounds. Are they just playing out, you know, an attraction based on trauma or societal conditioning or soul? So my deepest question around monogamy and, you know, polyamory, is that the correct word? Polygamy? No, kidding. Joking. Non-monogamy, whatever. Open relating, all the fractals of how we can relate as human beings, is what's our motivators? What are our standards, our preferences? Why do we even get in a relationship? You know, so that's got to be a big part of the conversation, because some people trying to fill a void, some people are trying to please their parents, some people, you know, are sex addicts, some people are love addicts. There's such a spectrum of human trauma that can be a very large motivator unconsciously to why people relate in any particular way, whether they're in monogamy or in polyamory. So then there's the integrated version of both things. Like,
so where have you found that in your life, though?
In my life, so like, for example, I was really fascinated with polyamory in tribal societies. And the ones that I found that were successful were matriarchally run. So the women decided who the men were. And there was also configurations in that tribe. So there would be 2 men with 3 women as a household. And I was like...
It was because of resources.
It was not just resources, but for when you're in a... Like,
Was tribe still alive?
I don't know.
So they died.
So it seems like the relationship,
Actually, it's working. No, they are. This society still exists. I'm where? I don't remember. This is probably somewhere in South America. Yeah. So yeah.
I know.
Well, I can tell you about reality.
Go ahead. So finish the context setting, because I think it'll help, and I think it'll help shape the conversation a bit. So in my own life, I tried open relating, knowing that my wounds, that I don't feel as safe if my partner is connecting with another man. Like, I'm a Leo. I'm a very loyal, loving man, and I prefer to share connection. And I have the side of me that loves the beauty of the feminine. So I've been in situations where I've dated multiple women at the same time, in transparency and in connection and ethically, not sleeping with multiple women, but in connection with multiple women. And then I've been in monogamy, and I've been on that pendulum swing when you're talking about the extremes, where I've like, either I'm celibate, healing from a monogamous relationship, I'm dating multiple women, or I'm in a monogamous relationship. So what I found that's successful is, again, the self-knowledge that emerges from actually knowing your wounds. Okay, oh wow, this was an unconscious pattern. I was avoiding intimacy when I was in this open relating situation. I didn't want to go deep with this one person. I wanted to keep my options open, versus some people that get into it because they have split definition in human design and they need multiple reflections, or that's just how they're built. They're literally made to be with multiple people. So like, we have to look at like, how much of it is conditioning and how much of it is the authenticity of who you actually are. And that's a really important conversation to have because
But there's so much more to it because, so first of all, as humans, we want a partner to walk this life with, right? And so whatever that partner is, and yes, you can have multiple relationships, but there is always, or maybe I'm overly romantic, right? But there is always a partner, whether you call it a soul partner or sacred partner, somebody that you can build a life together and raise children and create your own little bubble, right? The beautiful, loving bubble that Sasha had when he was growing up. And also in terms of the feminine versus masculine, we all have feminine and masculine in us. Men have feminine and masculine, and women have feminine and masculine. So we can't just say that women have to stay in their feminine and men have to stay in their masculine. Yes, probably. However, the healthiest ways, both men and women have a balance between their divine masculine and the divine feminine, which is not an easy balance to achieve. And yes, society and the images of what it's supposed to be and what, it can be or could be, with a partner, one partner, there's multiple agendas that are constantly being thrown at us, whether it's with monogamy or polygamy or polyamory or whatever names that are constantly being thrown at us. I don't know. I mean, there's always different trend, if you will, but at the end of the day, as humans, I believe that we want a partner and we want a mate to walk this life with and build something together, right? And can you build it with multiple people? Probably, but will somebody on that spectrum get hurt eventually? I don't know how not. If you're invested in a relationship and you're building a future with somebody, you can't not, how do you accept that this person who you love and cherish and who is your partner for life is also having a relationship with another partner? I don't know how that can work personally, and maybe some people make it work, but then when children gets introduced, how do you manage that? What's healthy, what's not? And everybody has a different spectrum, we all agreed, but at the end of the day, it's that sacred partnership that I feel we all strive for, we all want to find and live with. I was married for 23 years and have 2 grown daughters, and I would definitely a monogamist kind of person. I believe he never cheated on me. I've never cheated on him. And I feel that when you are in a relationship with somebody and if you truly love that person, you're not going to go look anywhere else. You're going to be with that partner.
I have a question though. So we all have desires.
Yeah.
And your partner cannot necessarily all the time fulfill all these desires. So let's go into extreme because those extremes. Let's say you're into black man and you have a white man as your husband. Okay. There will be an element that you will never be able to give you that.
Yeah.
So where is it
the white man applied to black man?
But does it mean you have to go into some sort of compromise and sacrifice in that partnership of okay, that desire I cannot get fulfilled? Or let's say you're into BDSM. And he's I'm not into that at all. Does it mean you cannot have these very intimate desires fulfilled in your life? Where's the line?
Well, I can.
That comes back to preferences though versus standards. If it's a non-negotiable and this you have to have BDSM in your life because you know that about yourself, then you're not going to end up with a relationship with someone who's not into BDSM.
Ideally.
Right. So it's again, it comes down to that self-knowledge.
In my situation, this is quite vulnerable for me to share. I don't really tick that many boxes for my partner, and we had our child. It was a beautiful surprise. So the situation that we find ourselves in is we're choosing a monogamous relationship for now that's non-sexual. And we're doing it consciously for now because our child is 9 months old. So we want to get in the groove of that and figure it out. And he's incredible. We have open relating conversations all the time. And we're both open to this idea that at some point we might fully, move away from one another, but close proximity, raise the baby as best friends and co-parents. And in that situation, we wouldn't be monogamous anymore, or we're then open to be with other people. But I feel the core, it's quite painful, of course, or was. I feel good about, I'm not good with everything now, but the core thing that has made this transition possible is just the communication and knowing ourselves and the boundaries and knowing our desires and just knowing like who and what we are. And I think a lot of people, I guess it goes back to the conversation earlier, like you were saying, like people end up in relationships because maybe that person's hot or rich or like whatever. These superficial,
I think people don't understand the consequences of every single decision that they make. You know, like we're talking about trying to, let's heal this wound, and then they go into another wound, and they're like, let's heal this wound, then they go to another wound. And they look back and they still are making the same stupid decision, right? So one thing that I did not like after the reason why I could say like this, because I went probably more extreme into the Obudian world than like anybody else.
What did you do?
Like very deep. That was another life. Some of these guys. So I did not wear shoes. I was running around crying at the moon, like all these things. I was in every single tantra workshop. Like I was deep into it, where every single every single one. I was like that go-to guy like 3-4 years ago. Where you're like,
did you have
the guy from the dance?
Did you have a man bun?
Not full. So, and the problem with most people is they don't understand the consequences of their decision. So a lot of the things that people do here in Bali is cope. It's all cope. It's like
mechanism.
You did not understand where you fucked up in, men and women,
They just go with flow.
and you just go with the flow because you saw some other guy go with the flow looking like Jesus, and you're like, I want to look like Jesus.
Everyone does it outside of Bali.
Understand this, because we can choose to believe that, but I have seen very happy, like for example, couples, like for example, Sasha's parents, something in the makeup of the environment, the society, the culture, like got it to the point where they raised such an amazing human being. And do you think that they were like spending all of their time,
And singing.
like I need to go ahead and feel my wounds? Like it's all selfish, right? Like ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. And when we're on our deathbed, what's important? All of the men and the women that we were with, that we were like co-mingling with, right? Oh my God, like, yeah, that guy who fed me, you know, like the rock cacao underneath the moon while, you know, Saturn's rising and up Uranus and all that stuff. Like at the, truly think about it, right? Like we are making decisions every single moment. Those decisions have consequences. One day we are going to die. And at the end of the day, there's going to be no cope. There's going to be no explaining yourself. You're going to look yourself in the mirror. Your higher self is going to see you, and it's going to be like, did you waste your life or did you make the wrong decision? And I'm telling you this right now because, like, I do believe that the problem is actually all in the men, right? Because I'm telling you this, like, I was curious on this. When I was deep in Bali, I was like, I went deep in all of the tantra things, spirituality, staging, all that stuff. But for some reason, my relationship got worse and worse and worse and worse, right? And I started realizing all of the women giving me advice were in a relationship with a weaker man. So obviously, if I'm spending all of this money, I'm like, oh, I got to spend money. I'm going to spend money on all. The only good money that I spent was literally on Sasha and Brian and AJ and Dave at Yogi Lab. Like that was literally the best money that I spent because I learned from men that had the results that I want. When I was like giving money to girls that were essentially telling me how to lead my relationship, and here's a strong woman and a weaker man, and I'm like listening to these guys, you have no idea what it's like to trust someone fully, trusting the process and realizing, oh, why is my relationship resembling them? Oh, it's because they're giving me advice, right? So there's consequences to decisions that you make, and many people here, oh, I heard something in one of those ecstatic dances, I'm going to go ahead and do that because they look happy in that moment. Great. Look at them 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later.
So do you feel taken advantage of by the feminine?
No. I'm actually very grateful for that because I swung the other way and then I found something that was like really good in the middle, right? But the only difference is like I'm a man and I have 20, 30, 40, 50 years to figure it out. And when I close my eyes forever, the thing that I care about is not all of the women that I like slept with and drank with, but like little faces that look like me and just filled with a lot of love. And there's like so many people here that's like, oh, you know, like that person and open love and all of that stuff. But it's like, at the end of the day, do any of those people matter? Now, of course, this is why I say like it depends when you ask them, because obviously it's like when you die, you realize, shit, I should have had kids. Like none of those flings actually mattered, right? So that's why like I applaud you and I applaud you for all of that. But it's like no one's actually thinking. And the problem by the time they actually are aware of it, it's like, where are all the strong men? Like, where are they? They can't find anyone as strong as them. So then now they have to settle for one guy, maybe two guys, maybe three guys, maybe four guys, maybe five guys. Because it's like, fuck, I'm so strong. No one can satiate me or make me feel safe. So because of that, I need multiple men.
Well, there's also, we live in a very peculiar time, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We live at a time where we don't have to compete for resources, and we are privileged enough to be able to focus on ourselves instead of keeping the relationship that we attract, right? Which is in task.
America right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that just everybody's working on themselves instead of working on a relationship. And there's a lot of positives to that, but there's also a lot of negatives. So a lot of positives because we hopefully evolve as a species and we hopefully better ourselves for ourselves. But when it comes to family unit, when it comes to, children and relationships and all of this, that's where it probably is falling through. It's because we're not fighting for survival anymore. We're working on ourselves.
I want you to explain like your parents' upbringing, because I think there's a lot of wisdom in how your parents kind of came about. Like how old were they when they met? But that's the thing, like it's a different time, a different world. But that
Wait. I see the problem also on Bali because everyone's thinking that, I'm in this magical bubble for a few months, maybe for 10 days. I'm actually really grateful that you say me all of this because I'm here like 2 weeks almost, and I'm like, oh really? I should just be aware of this all,
No, you have to protect yourself from everyone else with a ponytail trying to feed you some type of magic.
For sure.
Except for Luke, because
I really had a lot of you should do a time turn.
Kind in general, especially with their dancers. It's extra burst time. Go ahead. But I really want to know, for example, your situation, because like every single thing that we're talking about is we're trying to cope. And obviously, when we have kids, we don't want them to make the
I start to feel disconnected when you say we and us, and I would love to hear I statements. Talk about being in your masculine.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk to Sasha. So Sasha, I'm actually very curious because everything about this is where we're literally going deep into, we're going to go ahead and put a Band-Aid on this wound, Band-Aid on this wound, Band-Aid on this wound. But your parents created like something beautiful. And there was, even though we don't live in the exact same times, like you could find those qualities. And if you could teach your kids how to go ahead and look for a better partner earlier on, like your parents met at 16 and 17, then none of this would actually exist. So like I would love to know exactly how your parents did it, because then if we could go back in time where we fucked up, then we could actually learn and not make the exact same mistakes for when we get older, as well as like our kids.
Yeah, thank you. I think one thing, this argument of like, well, it was a different time, it's actually not a good argument. Okay. Yeah, because like I grew up, I was 2 when the wall came down, but I was born in east of Germany in communism. So my parents lived in communist East Germany. And their parents grew up and obviously like lived through war and like all these different things, right? So even though there's a lot of like, okay, we equal and like communism has a lot of beautiful things in many ways, but it wasn't all like fluffy, beautiful rainbows and like, glitter and butterflies, And at home, what they found, like having a belt, these kind of things, like that just happened, My parents, though, they left the house when they were 13 and 14 and left and went to a boarding school because they were athletes. So in some ways it was great because they had some privileges, because as an athlete in east of Germany, you received a few privileges. However, they were far away from home, so there was no like masculine role model. For example, my dad's father passed away when he was like 14 years old, so very young. And when they met and they really like, being an athlete teaches you a lot in regards to develop a character, like dealing with criticism, failures, like teamwork, all these different things of dedication and time management. There's so much in terms of just being an athlete. However, at the same time, they also very consciously choose. They looked at the relationships that their parents had and what didn't work, like the way how they dealt with money, the way how they like, dealt with their kids or themselves even like, and they was like, you know what? Those are the things that we do not want. And they just picked a different system that they developed themselves pretty much. It's not about monogamy. It's not about polyamory or like, all these other things. It's like, okay, this is what we want. Those are all the things that we really
hear on that values.
Yeah. What age were they? How many like partners did they have before? And what was the social setting that essentially, it is probably the most relevant thing that will probably prevent future wounds for you.
Yeah.
So please like tell us like, what was the age? How did they meet? How did they fall in love? How did they like have the values? How were they raised by their parents? Because there's some wisdom in that we are clearly avoiding, and we're just spending more money on spiritual healing sessions that's essentially just spiritually bypassing everything. So I'm so curious on what happened with their parents.
I mean, I don't know how many, like...
What is your body?
All this going on. Actually, I can't even ask him anymore because he passed away. But I think the fact when you move away from home at such a young age and you're basically being developed through sports and like coaches and all these other things, you have to develop your own character very, very quickly, right? So that's one. And they met very young, and then at some point they broke up for a short period of time, and then my dad realized, holy shit, that's actually the woman that I really want. And he had to like come back with flowers and like,
For how long did they break up?
I don't know, not that long, like a few months,
Oh,
It's
like a
yeah, it was more like a pause. But I think like this commitment, this understanding, like, you know what, this person is really good and I'm feeling really good with this person. And then like really starting to develop this relationship together with all the challenges that are there. But like if you approach this from a place of like, okay, we love each other, we respect each other, there will be differences. It's like inevitable, can we live with these differences? And then they just continue to develop that.
Well, and I think something interesting that you said about that, about them going away young and really having to develop their own character, I think like there's sort of two themes I'm picking up on, like from you. One of the things when you're talking about people, basically what I'm hearing is that they lack intentions, so it's like they don't have clear intentions. They don't have self-awareness. And so it's like when you have this capacity or you're given this chance to develop self-awareness, to develop a character, and then you have an intention and you can enter into a relationship.
And you're clear on your values.
Yeah, I think that's going to create this love bubble or this like a very different relationship experience where I think so many people in today's world, not just in Bali, but I think in the world at large, often are living without really any awareness or any intention, and they just kind of live by default.
I would go even further. They lack integrity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Where does that lack of integrity come from?
Well, one, because they haven't developed this character.
Well, their parents.
Their parents.
And one day, all of us are going to be parents. So one day we have to actively, scrutinally look at our decisions that we make every single day.
Correct.
And know that that's what our kids are going to fucking do.
This isn't fully true because my parents are the most in integrity people I've ever met. And I've cheated on boyfriends. I've done a lot of shit that's not in integrity. And so I think back to what you said, we are living in a slightly different era because we have...
It's important to examine the generation because there's fifth generational trauma and there's third generational trauma.
What does that even mean?
Fifth generational trauma lives in the unconscious. Third generational trauma lives in the subconscious. So these are the frameworks of how the nervous system actually relates to its environment and love. So a lot of people are out there trying to do what they think they need to do to get love, unconsciously or otherwise, whether that's through society's conditioning at the top layer or just on the family structure level or the bottom level, which is, oh, I need to do this in order to be lovable. So there's a lot of strategies of getting love that's going on in humanity in general.
Based on how you look, what you believe in.
That's the surface level. The generational part is even deeper, like fear of engulfment, fear of abandonment, terror, unsafety, shame, and how shame doesn't get told. Shame gets thrown around. Manipulation, codependency being one of the biggest things that is propagated in our culture, and that most families were either given avoidant or codependent.
Well, and I think that's one of the challenges right now and why I'm I don't want to say I'm against monogamy because I think there's certain cases where it works beautifully, but I think a lot of people who are in monogamous relationships are really just in codependent relationships, and it's not a healthy thing. And it's not like they're actively choosing monogamy. They're
defaulting in their codependency.
Exactly.
Totally.
And so it's like, have you actually, or if you've actually taken the time to examine your values and what you want and experimented with different things and see what works, I'm not saying that monogamy isn't going to be the right choice for you, but when that is the default, it's not a choice that you're actively making.
I'm just going to be very careful on what you said, right? Because as you say this, understand this, if this video goes viral, right, and you impact 1 million women, in their 18 years old.
To make intentional choices with their life?
No, to do exactly what it is that you said, that test certain things, You're essentially going to have a lot of these 18-year-old women looking up to you, telling them test, and then at 30, they realize all the things that they tested, they find one that they like, but they're 30, and now they're like...
Is that a bad thing?
No, I'm just saying, looking back at it, if a lot of people go ahead and do that, and then I'm just telling you this because it's like, I led retreats with women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s crying because they made the wrong decision when they're 18.
What's wrong? So you're going to blame those people making wrong decisions?
I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying.
I'm just an opportunity to get to really understand what she's saying before you jump on one of the ideas.
I'm just saying this because it's like people do not understand that they have an influence. Everyone here has a leadership position. And there's certain things that we say that we don't understand the consequences of it. and we create content about it, and then it goes out there and someone starts idolizing some type of hero, and then you start moving down that path, and then you realize that maybe that hero also didn't know that much, like our parents didn't know that much, and then now you're in the exact same position at 30, 40, 50, 60, realizing, oh, actually, if I just was like Sasha's parents, 16 and 17,
that I found someone that I literally signed up for Sasha's Calendly link,
But you know
booked his
what?
coaching.
Back to Sasha's parents. I have to give them a lot of credit for being as aware. However, I beg to differ about different times because I too grew up in the communism. And I do know very well. I grew up in Moldavia, which is now called Moldova, former Soviet Union,
What language do they speak?
Romanian and Russian.
So you can speak both.
I used to.
Yes,
I still speak Russian, yes, but not as well as I used to. Yeah, немножко.
Я тебя люблю.
Anyway, back to Sasha's parents. So anyway, and so that time, people got married very, very young. That was normal to have kids at 18 years old.
Correct.
If you were not married by the time you were 20, there was something wrong with you. Everybody
Very different.
pair up and marry very, very early on. Now, I do have to give them a lot of credit for having the awareness. However, also divorce was not an option for most people. You know, once people pair up, unless something happens, like a major, affair or major something, people just never got divorced. They stuck together for better or worse. And if it did happen, and doesn't mean that everybody had to be happy. In fact, so that's why I'm back to Sasha. That's it, right? That's exactly.
Just because a relationship stays together.
Doesn't mean it's successful. If it's codependent, is that actually success? Right?
Have coaches. They didn't have social media. They didn't have therapists.
Exactly.
They didn't have any.
They didn't
They weren't exposed.
the information that we had
Any of the tools that we have today to know, and some of them might have gone this way, that way, whatever way. But to my point that it's different time is we have so much more at our fingertips today.
Yeah.
And it gives us an opportunity to experiment and play around. And I get you what you're saying, and I get you what you're saying. And you, and everyone. Because yes, when you see something, you go, maybe I should try. Maybe I missed out. Maybe I can do this. And maybe it's not for you. And maybe some people get sucked into this, and maybe whatever. I don't know what is. But the bottom line is, what I meant to say to resources is that we live in a different world where women can provide for themselves. They don't need a man to take care of them. Now, we all do want a strong man to take care of us, and we want that safe spot. But in reality, we don't need that. But
Are you saying that because, so you're telling me if there was this man that just
Yes.
came up in front of you that solved and ticked every single one of your
Yes.
boxes, would you still believe that narrative
believe what narrative?
of doing all the things that you said you wanted to do with getting a job or all if a man could fully make you feel safe and secure?
I'd want that man.
Yeah, but there's a difference between
absolutely.
to have it. But
I'm looking for that man.
That's why I'm taking on the podcast. So essentially what happens, have an environment where there's none of those men. I'm not blaming, people are...
that's American trauma, actually.
It's if you look around, it's
Really?
we have all these tools.
Yes.
We have all of these resources. Why are more relationships getting more and more fucked? Right? So
Because they haven't dealt with the generational trauma.
Feminine and women and too masculine.
There's a problem with a lot of choice.
Luke has so much wisdom, but
I have 3 cousins, and they're 18, 19, 20, and they get married in this age, and it's still normal for them to have one partner, to be married, to have traditional, normal relations. Don't fuck around, because they don't live in big city. They don't travel around the world. They're okay, I love this person, and I want work on myself and on my thing that I'm doing in life with this person.
With this person.
Yeah. Not because I will try it here and I will try here. Maybe this person gonna be better for me. Oh, maybe this. Oh, I don't feel comfortable here. Because we are right from the pain that we have inside, and we're not trying to work on it. So what I'm telling you about that, they choose each other, and they are ready to go through this shit together, and that's it. And they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they telling me such conscious things that even I'm wow, okay, that's good, So I'm trying to say we have this idea that we have a choice, we have a time, and especially Bali and LA, because I was living in LA, you think that, okay, here's a lot of people, and I have a lot of time to choose this like perfect person that not exist. Sure, like it's not exist. So that's what I try to say all of this.
All right. So one thing I'm taking away from what you're saying when I'm here, everybody, that I think is an important piece of context is the culture that these things are existing inside. So the generational piece is one piece which had a particular culture. Soviet Union, communist Germany at one point. That's a very, very different time. And so part of it's the generations, part of it's the culture. Like what is the culture that's happening on the planet right now? We have the internet. We have pop culture. We have things that shape culture more so than at any other point, where cultures are being shaped. And that influences how men and women relate more than anything, because culture influences our values, and our values influence our behavior, which influences our choices. Coming back to choices, what you're talking about. So if there's not a shared understanding of culture's role in this, and we're not in shared reality around that, and we're just throwing out random generalizations, we're not going to create a dynamic enough conversation to get down to some really fundamental things of how these things either work or don't, and the gradient of shadow and light that lives within whatever path you're on, whether it's monogamy or polyamory. There's gifts and shadow that lives inside of it. There's people that are doing it from an unconscious place. There's people doing it from a very conscious, self-aware place. And that's a spectrum. So I would love to get into that spectrum and understand what is the culture happening right now. Because from my perspective, it's the loss of village. We have lost village on our planet with colonization and the industrial age, everything that's led up. We're in these little fragmented households. And so when there was village, there was space for union to be supported by the village. So whether it was a village that was ran around monogamy or divine union, or if it was a village that was run off of deep tribal values that supported multiple partnerships, that village is what we've lost in our times. And so the rites of passage that gave adolescents the ability to know themselves, tribal cultures, there was an elder taking a young person that was in there, once their hormones came on, their sex hormones, it was like, okay, you need to face your fears. If you don't know your fears or what you're afraid of, you can't know your place within the village. And so they would have to go through a rite pace of 5 years of being mentored to understand their fears before they could have the right relationship with their own sexual energy. Otherwise, that sexual energy can create trauma, can create chaos, and bring about destruction of the village. So there was protocols in place that help someone know their sexual energy, that their discernment and intuition were merged as one. If your intuition and discernment is not online, you can't see what's right or not for you, then that can impact the whole village. So that loss of rites of passage has created a fragmented culture in the world.
How did it start?
That is so true.
Where did it start?
Ooh.
So there was one
So-
moment that was village, and then what happened where now, as it got big, how did it...
Colonization.
Yeah, colonization.
And then?
More.
The continual seeding of colonized consciousness spreading as a culture. Yeah.
So then now more and more colony, now there's more people, now what?
And capitalism. You look now, have you ever lived in a big apartment? Yeah, late stage capitalism. You live in an apartment building. Do you know your neighbors? It's
Is there
weird
actually
when
a
you
village?
say hi to people. It's not a village. Bali's
Bali
up
still has a
close.
village.
Feels a little like a village. Village, obviously the Balinese get what that is, but expat feels like a small college campus here, but it's still not ideal by any means. As made evident by what you were saying. Definitely like Disneyland.
Actually, it's when the only one is hooking up with everyone over here.
Not me.
If we're talking a lot in generality.
I understand.
So here in Bali and in Ubud, you find a bunch of people, they're far, far away from monogamy. Of course they exist, but generally speaking, everyone hooks up with everyone over here. And then we're getting triggered and we're having all this pain, and then we're reliving it all the time, and at the same time we're masking under this idea as I'm getting sexually liberated, I'm doing all these things and blah blah blah.
Right,
And then at the end of the day you actually do the complete opposite.
Don't you think that that's a reflection of larger Western culture, though? Because everybody here is from...
It's a microcosm.
Yeah.
The reason why many people come to Bali is because something fucked them up outside, and they came to Bali and let me go ahead and heal.
Retrieve.
And they keep on going, and they find some gurus, and some have the best intention in mind, some don't have the best intention in mind. And then it just keeps on going, and they either choose to stay in this bubble where they just avoid reality, and they don't take the gifts that they learn from Bali and bring them back out to the world, or they just become like a super just
adjusted to this.
It's reality.
I should go. It's gonna take us out. What do you think? What do you think reality is?
I asked you first.
so I have to.
You go.
So here's the problem. Here's like a matrix or this magical bubble gum.
Well, I want this magical bubble gum.
Hearing it. I feel like in Valley or LA, it's like magical bubble gum. You know? So you're like somewhere like separated from reality, but there is like another thing. There's the matrix where you go into the big cities and you're gonna choose like, well, what do you want to do? You want to be in this bubble gum.
We're still in a matrix.
What I've realized. Okay, so I've been
What
traveling.
reality is. I'm dying to know what reality is.
So I've been traveling for, like, I left Bali, I don't know, a year or two ago, right? And I've literally just been traveling, just going to big cities, going to like little villages, just seeing like how relationship dynamics like end up forming. And one of the things that I realized is, like, for example, if I move to a big city, right? I move there and I meet someone that just moved there within 2 weeks versus someone that was in there 2 months. Those 2 months of degenerate behavior and spending time with degenerate friends and all of those things literally fucks the person up because they think it's all right. And then now they're coping in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Yeah. So it's essentially like the influence that we've had earlier on where there was some type of situation where we were influenced in a way that actually didn't have our best interest in mind. And then we go through all this pain and created all these wounds. And then now we have to cope until we die, right?
Have you been married before?
I am a very, 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 very lucky man.
No.
And yeah, I like keeping my relations private, so.
Oh, wait. Aren't we supposed to be vulnerable here?
I'm very vulnerable. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. As a man and a woman, right? If I give too much information about my woman, especially with the audience that I have, there is a possibility if someone wanted to go ahead and take advantage of me, they would find that as like the attack route.
Don't think in fear.
Wait, have you been married?
This isn't fear. This is logic. This is logic. This is a man. Like
Mike, wait, have you been married before? It's a yes or no question.
He gave you a clear answer. He would not like to answer. You know, and that's fine.
I think I've had a very, very deep, like, connection as if it was like a marriage. And it was like very deep and very special and very good. And I learned a lot of amazing lessons. Like all of us here.
Yeah. It's life.
Yeah.
There's reality as it is, and then there's the reality that we want.
Yeah. Good answer.
Very, very different things.
I like that conversation. What is the reality that we want?
Yeah.
Sticking to the topic at hand.
I'm still thinking about cacao and the mold.
Yeah, what is it that we want?
Okay, so
we're able to
So wait, as a woman, what is it that you want in a relationship?
Well, I feel like it's as a person, because as a woman, she's
She is a woman, so she can answer it for
herself.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, which will be a very different answer than like, Luke or Mike or I will give.
I'm a woman.
And you in this situation.
I'm proud to be a woman. And I'm a woman. Let me also preface this. I'm a woman with a strong masculine who didn't like being a woman for the majority of my life. So delving into the depths of what a strong feminine is my entire character arc, okay? And what I want is a strong masculine man who can take care of shit. If I don't want to work, if I don't have to work, okay? I can play, but also if I want to work, I can work. And who is also very in touch with his feminine side, his emotional side, who can go there, who can collapse. And I'll be there. I want someone to dance in the polarities with me who has both sides developed and that we can be really strong communication. Actually, I'm going to have that with my partner. We can do all these things. It's almost like we are exploring what is love, removing all the stuff about sexuality because it gets like, it's like the purest form of what love can be. So really, like, I actually do have the majority of what I want. I'm still a human and a woman, and you want chemistry and that too. So yeah, I want the whole package of everything.
What are like two non-negotiables for you?
For me with my future.
Yeah, to like if you were to like tune in and like actually claim a stand.
I'm jealous. I get quite jealous because I'm the queen in my own world.
I tell you why. I tell you why you're jealous.
Tell me why.
Because you said you were most of your life very much in your masculine.
Yes.
And you're, from the sound of it, you were not really happy with the way how you operated as a masculine in its totality. So you
He
can't
was a
trust.
shield.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Might hand rate that shit. Let me finish this. So you can't trust your own masculine fully. So therefore, you don't trust any other masculine.
Couldn't in the past, can now. We could get into that question later, you, me, one-on-one, but somebody said something, we were on
Non-negotiable.
thread there. The non-negotiables for me, I want somebody that chooses me fully. And a woman, you can feel that in your body. And it's like when you feel that as a woman, it's almost like not so triggering if he looks at another woman and is like appreciates the beauty of another woman. Or maybe if you want to try a threesome or something crazy, because you always know where you stand. And it's that feeling of being chosen fully. But what I've learned from my own stuff, and this is why I do think that a level of like introspection and self-work does matter. I have to choose myself first fully before I can expect external reality on any level to do the same. And that's my big like woof aha moment.
That's the hardest thing for the collective to embrace, is full self-responsibility, because everything that shows up in your reality is a reflection of you.
Yeah.
And so,
Which goes back to what Mike said as well, is like we have to take responsibility and accountability for all those decisions that we have made in the past.
Yeah.
If we don't, then like,
that catches up.
Beautifully said, Lauren.
Thanks.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. So we'll have like an idea session of, and I think it's a
Katie hasn't talked for a little while. I want to bring her back into the conversation.
Yeah, thoughts. On what specifically? I think,
Let's talk about like, what do you want in a man?
I mean,
It's
I
like-
think in a relationship, I definitely agree. I think there's an element, and I had this in my last partnership, of like really being chosen. And people would always say that to me, like, don't you get jealous? And sometimes, yeah, but why is that bad? Why is jealousy something that we're not allowed to feel? Why is it like I very much believe that like we're here as humans to experience like this massive spectrum of emotion. And so that's not always a bad thing to me. And that being said, I felt very secure in my partnership, and I felt very safe. And something that we talked about earlier, different people with different sexual preferences, let's say. So it's like maybe there's something that he wants that I'm not really into. And it's like, if you want to go and get that from someone else, absolutely go have fun. And I think there's a lot of, ideas around sexuality that maybe have space to be evolved or to look at differently, where I think there's a lot of ownership that's often tied to sexuality. And it's like, you don't have to own someone else's sexuality just to have a lot of love or to be in a deep partnership with them. And so in terms of like what I like or what I would desire, absolutely being chosen, and vice versa. It's like, I want to also choose the partner that I'm with, and I want to be so in love with them. And like, I think in my ideal, despite having sort of recently been in this polyamorous situation, right now, I think my ideal is more of like a non-monogamous situation where I have somebody that I have a really deep, loving, long-term partnership with. And if at points during our relationship, it feels right to experiment sexually with other people, then we have the freedom to do that. I think the novelty of it is fun. It's like, and with my last partner, again, every time I connected with someone else, I come back to him like more in love and more like excited to be with him. And I'm very much kind of to your point of extremes. I like to call it more contrast, where it's like, I like having contrast in experiences. I like, my experience with this person. Like, I kind of look at people as keys that unlock different parts of us. And so my partner is, even though they may unlock massive parts of me, they still aren't going to unlock all of me. And so having connections with other people, it's like, oh, you've just opened up a new part. But hold on. Sorry, go ahead. You were on such a beautiful thread, but does it have to be sexual? Can you hang out with someone, non-sexually, and they can unlock something? I don't think it has to be sexual, but I think if that works for somebody, like, I think sexuality is such a fascinating thing to explore. And I think it's such like a beautiful, part of humanity. And again, I don't believe that it's right for everybody to have relationships like this. But in terms of my ideal, this is what I feel right now. And I might change my mind in like, a week or a year.
What's the difference between jealousy, feeling threatened, and like feeling threatened?
I think that's really interesting. I don't know that I have the answer for that necessarily. I think jealousy, when you have a base level of security in your partnership and trust, and it's like, I really never worried about him like falling in love with someone else or getting into another relationship with someone else and like leaving me behind, let's say. It just felt really secure, and I felt really like I could trust him in his boundaries. So kind of to that point around, I think we were talking a little bit earlier about the masculine, and right, you were talking about jealousy with being able to trust the masculine, and I really was able to trust that with him.
So when you had jealousy, did you like own that you were having jealousy?
Absolutely.
A connection.
Absolutely. And I think for any kind of open relating to work, you have to have, first of all,
Authenticity.
exceptional communication skills.
Which
You
I guess no one has.
Which, yeah. But to be able to, when they have plans with someone else, to be like, I feel really jealous, it's like, I'm feeling insecure about this. I'm worried about this. This is like a Brene Brown thing I heard one point, but I use it a lot, is like, I'm telling myself the story that, so it's like, I'm telling myself a story that you, I don't know, met this woman, that you're going to fall in love with her, and that you're not going to care about me, and that whatever it is.
You're gonna leave me because of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just plan A, B, C, D, E because you don't feel confident that you're gonna be with this person. So
Maybe. I'm not saying that I have all the right answers, or
I had this with like my boyfriend because I'm really jealous because I didn't trust him. I would say once when you don't trust 2 years, first 2 years we were like with each other like totally full time.
Yeah.
It's like I believe in you, I trust you, everything. But after I started to feel like he's like going more and more and more and more outside of our relations, and I started saying, okay, I need to have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I started to look this into another guy.
yeah,
Just in case I didn't have a sexual relations, but I was like, okay, in case if we broke up because I don't feel confident and I don't want to feel hard,
yeah,
I have options.
Yeah.
I have my plan B. So I will tell you a secret. I even started to have a different WhatsApp in case I have a list and we break up and I will have a different guy.
And did you guys break up?
Yeah, break up.
Not surprising.
Yeah, not surprising. Because I started trusting you. I didn't feel safe anymore. And I told him a lot, like, listen, I don't feel safe anymore. You're hiding your phone. You're hiding something. I feel like you're hiding all the time. And I don't know what's that, but I don't feel like I want to do this anymore.
Jealousy.
So,
yeah. Like jealousy, I think, is just a human experience.
I didn't use this list, actually. I was like just wasting time to texting and chatting with this guy. I didn't use this fucking list. It was like just plan ABC, just for my nervous system and my brain to say like, listen, you're gonna be safe, all gonna be okay. I didn't need this list,
Here's what I did. I had a partner. She was very, very jealous for obvious reasons. She got cheated on. Like, it was made all the sense.
By you?
Huh?
By you?
No. By her previous partner. And then I got together with her and he was very, very jealous. I was a bartender in a popular club in Berlin. So I'm like around like all these people, like intoxicated, like, flirting happens all the time. And I'm receiving numbers left and right every single night. So I was thinking, it's like, well, what do I do with this? I can hide it right now. Or every time I come home at like 4, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, hammered, unfortunately. But that was the lifestyle back in the days, right? And all those numbers, I take them out of my pocket, I put them on a table, I go to bed. The next morning when she wakes up, she sees them all. I was like, those are the numbers from last night. You can call them, you can burn them, you can throw them away. I don't care, now they're yours.
You get an award.
Triggered as fuck. I can tell you that. Absolutely. Yeah, because like I pushed all these buttons very consciously. But what happened over time, she realized, man, this guy is just giving me all these numbers all the time. He's not hiding anything.
And you're still choosing her, right?
And I'm still choosing her and I'm still coming home.
You didn't act on
Yeah.
No, of course I didn't
There
act
we
on
go.
it, right? But over time, like this almost like shock therapy helped her to realize this guy is actually someone that I can trust, because like these things where I could very quickly hide and like do my thing on the side, come home a few hours later, whatever. I didn't do any of it.
Yeah.
So you did what a partner, a masculine partner does. You provided safe space.
And transparency and integrity.
Transparency is a very big
Transparency and it triggered vital for a lot.
And I think again, going back to like my argument against monogamy, and again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I think the way a lot of people practice it is there isn't transparency, because it's like someone has an interest in someone else, someone has a conversation with someone else, and they hide it because implicit in the rules.
Is that implicit in the rules of monogamy?
I think
Because I've been in partnerships where we're just like, we've talked about that, even though we're close, we're like, oh wow, I noticed it attractive. How's that feel? Like, and you actually communicate about it authentically. I don't think that's inherently a monogamous thing. like a healthy monogamous relationship would talk about attraction.
Sure. I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like I don't think that healthy monogamous relationships are impossible, but I think when a lot of people just go the default route of monogamy, they're probably also not people that are spending a lot of time on communication skills or...
What if polyamory is just a reaction to codependency?
It could be. And then, like, I've had that question myself, right?
Do you think codependency is a bad thing?
I think interdependence is an evolved version of...
Is it a yes or no question?
No.
Because like I feel like codependency is very often, and even here at this table,
I think it is.
Codependency is a bad thing.
I think it is, yeah.
Do you think that even in the slightest option, there's the possibility for a fully independent relationship where there's no codependency?
I don't know. For me,
have you seen any completely relationship where there's no codependency?
I have.
What about
You have? Yeah. Really?
what about
With a relationship?
Sure.
What about interdependence?
That's what I'm saying.
That's clear. Yeah.
It's so like if everything exists at like, so codependence, let's say codependency is a shadow of where you're outsourcing love to another person. Like you could take a spectrum of what codependency means. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you can't rely on someone. Doesn't mean that they can't impact you. Doesn't mean that you can't ask for support. Like let's define codependency before we get into this, because we might have different subjective understandings of what codependency is. Because for me, codependency is a toxic trait of survival that we've been taught. And it's not two sovereign beings that are choosing to be in connection, choosing it, not defaulting into it, not grasping, not trying to fill in a hole, not trying to get love from the other because they can't give it to themselves, but like actually choosing to be in connection. Codependency is a default program. And so you're talking about conscious choosing, being aware of our choices. Codependency is a default. And so that's why I give it that negative connotation. Now, can certain percentages of codependency exist even in a really healthy relationship? Probably. I mean, we all got shadow and light.
I think it has to.
Yeah. I don't know that it has to, but I think it often does, as long as there's like awareness of it and you're consciously working on it.
So in sales, there's a point A and a point B, right? I wanted to give everyone space and just listen to show you that I could authentically relate and like deep into active listening. I was actively listening. I was nodding. I was listening to everyone, so you know that I can hold space. So it's inside me. But in terms of sales, okay, there's a point A and there's a point B. There's where you are, the pain that you're in, and where you want to be, in the pleasure. You go from your nightmare to your fantasy, your hell to your heaven. This is a sales process. You're willing to buy your way out of the pain and into your pleasure, right? So this is sales. I don't know if you guys know sales. A lot of life coaches here. Some of them don't really know sales, but yet they're still making 10 grand a month. So it's like you see that something's okay. So sales, let me go ahead. Now in the sales, everyone here that I've been hearing in the mix of all like the mental masturbation of what does this mean and what does that, okay, cool. Like that's very logical, right? But at the end of the day, everyone here wants something, and that is some type of relationship. Whatever you define it as, you want something. And from what I've heard, not my mouth, but it seems like a lot of women here want some type of man. Okay, so if that's like the end result, I'm just really curious because I'm a very nice guy and I want to hear authentically like what you guys actually want. And I'd be very curious on if you were going to create the dream man where it's in one body, not two
Or 3.
4 or 5, or any symmetrical spiritual number 7, 13, 11, 21, any one of those numbers. I'm very curious from the beautiful, lovely women here, what would that be in a man?
Alina? Oh, do I go first?
Yeah, you go first, Ishem.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that there is perfection, and I don't believe that the perfect mate exists. I think everybody has their own idea of what they're attracted to. However, I feel that you can be attracted to one thing and end up getting attracted to a completely different person because there's something in that person that draws you in. Whether that person, I think at the end of the day, we all want to be seen, right? That's kind of the innate nature of us as humans.
Like a fat guy that smells like KFC chicken, like looks at you and just makes you feel...
I probably wouldn't give that fat guy who smells like KFC chicken, whatever, give him even a chance.
But he makes you feel seen.
Yeah, but then
I will not give him a chance to be seen. That's what I.
which man do you give a chance, and which man is like this ideal for you? Yeah, of course,
Yeah,
not for and just for you.
Yeah.
So like, take the picture. What does it look like? What does he smell like?
Oh boy.
Mike wants to take you on a date.
No, I'm please don't tell me this is because when we are younger, we don't know what we want, so we accept what we want from other people that also don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And then now we're just kind of bumping in relation to relation, not knowing actually what it is that we want. When the person that you actually wanted, if you knew, is walking in front of you, you just can't see it because your brain is not focused on it.
Could be.
It's like if I wanted to go ahead and get a new dress, right? I got this dress. I got it on sale. I was like, oh my God, that looks so
How did you know? You see different territories. Are you expecting this?
And I go to a party,
Uh-huh.
and there's another fucking bitch wearing the same dress. Other people might not notice it, but because you have found importance in that dress and you see that person, you see it out of everything because you were aware of it because you had intentions because you actually bought the dress, right?
Yeah.
Many people don't actually know what they want in a relationship. So they're like, they see someone and they just like, oh, let's see how I feel. And then it's just like too much thinking, right? But if you generally knew exactly what it is that you wanted and it fell into your lap at an earlier age, you would like lock that person down immediately instead of going through all this stuff. So that's why I'm like curious, because now if we are 10, 20, 30-year-old selves will look back in this moment and just be like, man, if only I knew what I wanted in that moment in time when I was earlier, because youth is wasted on the young. What about if so I'm very curious, like now I would say after going that, what is like if you could build, if you went to like a Build-A-Bear, but instead of Build-A-Bear, it was like Build a Man, right? And you could build the perfect man that makes you feel seen, protected, heard. What is like his qualities? How would you want him to show up every single day? What does it actually mean to be seen for you?
Yeah, it's a big list. It's a very big list. But definitely, I want somebody who has a very masculine feel to him, right? But again, as a woman, I want to be attracted to that person. I want him to look a certain way.
And what would be that way?
For me, oh my God, really want to go there?
I'm very curious. You're a very beautiful lady, so.
Okay, I want a tall guy with salt and pepper hair, like longish a little bit, like maybe this, with like 3-day beard.
Absolutely no.
You know, the guy who has like traveled the world, has been super successful, has seen it all, who's very secure in who he is, who had kids. Kids are grown because I'm not raising another set of children. I've already raised. I don't want to be a stepmom to small children. I want to have fun. It's a new chapter. I want somebody who can be a playmate for me, who I can travel with, who I can intellectually connect with, who can hold my attention, and who I'm not going to be bored with in 3 days. Yeah, keep up with me spiritually, but not too spiritual, because I feel like men who are too spiritual, a little too much, you know, because it's a different, like your workshops, you know, you were talking about. It's a little too much.
What about the difference between what you want and what you actually? Because I think
Good question.
it's a lot different.
Beautiful question.
A lot
Yeah.
different.
Well, and that's where it goes to being seen, being chosen, like Lauren so eloquently said, feeling desired, feeling that there's something new to discover every day, being able to communicate with somebody and not being afraid to express who you are, and the same both ways, and to have, you know, this dance, this beautiful intimate dance where, you know, you're not, you can be vulnerable in every possible way and not be afraid to express yourself. And a lot of the times it's just very hard to do. I think that's the crux of any relationship, is to be able, because, you know, the reason we're all on self-exploration is because we're trying to figure out who we are and how comfortable we are with ourselves and our shadows and our darks and our lights. And so if we have a partner who can love us, and love us for, not just for our light, but for our dark as well, because we all have that, and see it and acknowledge it and not run away from it. And we feel secure enough, or I feel secure enough to be around the person who's
That's the
done.
formula right there.
Yeah.
Can you love your person's wounding?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got wounding. Is it compatible with your own?
So we should be focusing on, instead of compatible positives, compatible negatives.
There are. It's a yes and. It's both. But getting clear on what you need more so than what you want, because what you want could come from conditioning, can come from trauma, can come from societal conditioning. What you need, that's a soul-based clarity.
How do you figure out what you need?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
I think I have.
That's we want to know. That's why we're
I'm literally here trying to solve everyone's problems. And I'm listening. I'm giving everyone space. I'm looking you deep in the eye. I'm
You did? Yeah. But
because I'm curious. So, let's go back, Ross. So,
and wait, and I want the man who has this beautiful balance of feminine and masculine. I want the guy who's like super masculine, but I also want this guy to have the soft feminine side and be comfortable with that. Because usually men who are very masculine are uncomfortable with the feminine, and men who are feminine because they want to be feminist, they're uncomfortable with their masculine, and having that balance is very.
I want to have it all.
so.
I feel man.
Okay, I think this is amazing. This is amazing.
You know it's yourself that much.
Okay, so now you know yourself, Sislon.
No. I was like, I'm about guys. Like, I just want a girl who's hot. But
This for guys is very different.
Young. I want to understand. We can how to solve a problem.
Yeah, let's
We're going to find you guys a man. He's going to take every single box. You're going to live happily ever after. It's going to be amazing. All of these wounds, it won't matter. He will see you.
Yeah.
But again, I want to keep us focused on the main things. So we understand what you want. Like, what does everyone else
I think there's the problem.
want something different than what she said? Or would you want to add more into that?
Well, we're in different stages of life, right? So I don't want to be raising children with Danny, where these women are in different places in life.
But in terms
I
of
will
character,
raise my children.
in terms of character, because I understand the time.
That's also important, because that's a different kind of man, like I probably would not choose a guy. I might go for him, but I might not choose a guy who's never had kids because I want that bond. I want a man who's raised children, who knows what it's like to be a dad. Do you know what I mean?
But let's talk about qualities, right? So, because that's like universal. So if any woman has qualities that weren't included in that list, let's just put it all on the table so we could build the perfect man. I'm like very curious. Please, anyone else have more qualities?
But why? Because it's not universal and it doesn't take
I think it's universal.
Absolutely. It's universal.
Like universally, like very specific masculine traits. Even from everything that you've shared, there's so many.
It depends on the culture. It depends on the culture and the person's values and their needs.
Okay.
There might be some differences.
I have one idea because if you're a strong woman and you want to express yourself and you have this kind of culture, so I feel like if you're this kind of strong woman, you need this weak woman who like supporting you and always happy what they're doing for you, or always happy what you're doing, and it's like different roles, This woman will never be close but to powerful guy who like I said and you're doing this, and that's the like patriarchat. So I would say it's like different conceptions because you cannot change the strong woman or the weak guy in a few days, months, or even years, because that's the mentality, that's their values. You're not grow up from yourself a big man in one day. Yeah. So there's a difference about ruler of the country or the just guy who's like doing surfing every day and working somewhere remotely online, and you just want a girl who's that hot. That's it. You don't want a woman who's gonna support you when he is like dealing with such big things and responsibilities. It's different type of woman who can handle this or who can handle a surfer.
Can I tell you something that's like very interesting about Eastern European women and Russian women, right? Because we come to Balkans and we learn all these things about emotionality and learning how to like go in each other's shadows, and you'll be yin and I'll be yang and stuff like that, right? And after spending a lot of time in Eastern Europe, right, you could have a very strong Eastern European woman who's never been to any one of these events, but she knows, I don't know if it's from her grandma or mother, where if she finds a strong man and lists all these things that you talk about, she knows that if she pretends to be weak, even though she's strong and she has the ability to go ahead and go into Siberia, right, and follow the man and go through the pain and struggle like with her, that it would encourage the man to become stronger, right? Like there's something innately in us that generally wants to go ahead and protect every single woman that is close to us. The problem is we have this protection mechanism where it's like everyone around me, I need to go and protect. But if a woman, and I come home to a woman that constantly is talking about my shadow and like all these things about just negotiating everything with emotions and whatnot, it just becomes very unproductive for a man. And the man you described is a man with money that has ability to travel, that has ability to do all these things, and he also has options. And it's going to come to a point where it's like, okay, does this actually matter to make sense? Like if I'm in a business relationship and it's like one person's giving more value than the other and I'm not getting the energy back, it doesn't make sense to go ahead and separate. So what I'm curious about, as your finger's getting closer and closer to me, I'm getting a little bit nervous,
Do you want to say something?
is what does a woman have to go ahead and do once they find this man at an earlier age, at like 16, 17, 18, and maybe he's like a couple years older? What does she have to do in her behavior to go ahead and keep the man? Because we know after hearing everyone is you want to feel safe, seen, secure. So what does a woman have to do once they find the man of their dreams that they built?
Hold on.
I build a man.
This is so, you just said a lot, and you say a lot, and so it takes a lot to unpack it, but I'm going to swiftly just say things, okay?
Go.
What you said was a really beautiful truth to masculinity that not a lot of men share, so I want to honor you for that. And that truth is that a man really, it like weakens his spirit when you have to hear too much of like the emotions and the shadow and the this and the that. It weakens anyone's spirit. It's just dense. And so that's where the sovereignty comes into play. You have to do that work on your own and still have a partner that is communicative enough to understand. So you can celebrate each other's wins. And you could say, hey, you know what, I can't really connect right now because I'm really going through something. And then you go through it and then you come back and you're like, you can share the bullet points, but you don't have to drag the man into the abyss of your fucking swampy ass shadow because it actually drains him. Yeah, and the other way around.
So I just wanted to address that in general comes in where it's like your partner doesn't have to be everything. They don't have to be your best friend. They don't have to be your lover. They don't have to be your partner. Like, they don't have to be everything. It's like, that's why, again, community, friends, all these different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I give you an answer. Because I think it's almost more like men need to answer this question rather than women, right?
I'm with you because I was like, ideally, what a woman have to do? A woman shouldn't do anything.
Correct. And that's basically, this is exactly the point that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Basically what you were talking about, like there needs to be a certain level of being submissive. And if you're like a successful guy, you have a lot of stress, you're running a bunch of different businesses, you're making a lot of money, taking care of the family, protecting, providing, whatnot. And then you're coming home and you have a combative wife or a girlfriend who's just constantly arguing with you and giving you bullshit for like absolutely minor things. There's just so much extra stress that you don't even want to deal with. That's like the worst thing you can do as a woman if you want that high value, high quality man, whatever you want to call it. And this is the way how you act towards him because you're a strong masculine woman. You don't need any man and you can't say anything to me because like I can take care of myself. You lose.
I agree.
1,000,000%.
We were talking about his healthy polarity.
Talking about comes in because if a woman, there are some men, because of their mothers, are attracted to actually that kind of behavior. And I've seen it in several friends.
Guys, I had a really interesting conversation on the way to the podcast. And,
We're very well on time for.
I was driving with police on the top of our car, so I met a really interesting person. So, and he told me like one thing, my woman can be a leader. She can do any business that she wants. But when she's coming home, she's my baby. She's not competitive with me. She's not. She's just home. She's just a woman. So, and that's the point. You can be anyone who you want, but don't try to fight with a man. Like, anyway, he's bigger. No, it's like, I don't know, it's like in school. Don't try to fight with guys anyway, so they are bigger. So,
I've had an interesting experience with this actually in the past couple of months because in the partnership that I've been in, he's been going through a lot. And in terms of business and family and all these things. And it's been interesting because to that point of like, I've been going through stuff as well. And one of the things I feel like this relationship is kind of here to teach me is around anxious attachment tendencies. And it's like, I can either, in the limited time that we have to spend together, complain and be like, you don't give me enough attention and like this is hard and I'm feeling this and it's bringing this up. But it's like, I don't want to do that when I spend time with you. It's like, I know you have all this going on. I know you're managing all kinds of different things. You have a million balls that you're juggling right now. And it's like, when we spend time together, I just want to spend time with you. And then I can do the work on my own to that point of like sovereignty. And it's been a really interesting shift of like
kind of learning to hold back in some areas where it's like, he doesn't need to be my therapist. Like I have a therapist to be my therapist, right? And then it's like, were there certain things that needed to be addressed? Yes. And we addressed them at a point when it was appropriate to. But a lot of the time, it's just like, I understand you have your own stuff to deal with.
The difference between over-processing versus like when there's actual confrontation, you meet the contraction versus like looping and stuff and needing to process with your partner all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I have done a lot of the processing on my own and it's been really helpful. And I feel like I've grown a lot. And then when we have time together, it's just like we have such a great time together. And it's been an interesting experience. So it's interesting to hear you say that, Sasha.
Yep.
We're coming to an end.
I want cacao in the moonlight.
You want the count moonlight? You can have your quality moonlight. That's the bubble gum.
Polyamory, can I ask? That I've been dying to ask.
After we finish this.
Okay.
Yeah. To coming back to the very beginning of the questions, like, is monogamy realistic or delusional? Obviously, there's no common ground here, really, right? My last 2 cents to this is, if I'm looking at the Western world and how these relationships work right there, and I compare monogamous relationship as a whole, and I compare non-monogamous polyamorous relationship as a whole, then in general, I would say more traditional values and principles to apply in whatever kind of relationship dynamic you might choose is generally very healthy. Anyway.
Are we all going to do a little closing statement around it, or is that?
That was the best
That was-
closing
I think we
statement.
just finished it
I
over
think
there,
we
right?
just
So,
finished. I
right?
think we
Yeah.
just finished.
That was beautiful.
Thank you for
Thank
being here.
you.
Thank you for sharing vulnerably, all of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's time to have
Thank you
cacao.
for bringing so much energy to this. He was like fire.
I was like, wow.